Good morning. I am celebrating a huge milestone this week. I actually came to this spot specifically to do something special because I saw a weather window for myself. So I thought, oh, a nice beach is a good way to celebrate 3,000 days of rent-free living. It's huge. It's huge. I love it. If you're new here, my name is Amanda and I've been living on the road with my best friend Frank for more than 8 years. This is our current home truck. We've learned a lot of skills together, most notably mechanics. A lot happens. We are based in British Columbia, Canada. Right now we're exploring some of the remote parts of Vancouver Island. And I spend a lot of my time just existing in nature quietly, appreciating nature for all its wonderful sights and sounds. I love making celebrations, and so even the 3,000 days of something isn't something people would normally celebrate. I'm celebrating. It's a big round number. It's a lot. It's a lot of time. It's more than 8 years ago. I turned in my last set of keys to my last rental apartment and said goodbye to that rental lifestyle, and have since been living in vans and tents. This is my third van, and of those 3,000 days, I've spent at least 400 nights sleeping in tents, either hiking the Pacific Crest Trail or between my first and second van. There was a few months where I didn't have a van and I refused to go back to rental living, so I lived in a tent down by the river for several months. I've been doing a lot of thinking this past week about my whole experience, the highs and lows and kind of lessons learned and the realities that have undoubtedly set in over this time, and figured that in this video I would share some of that with you. Hopefully give you a realistic expectation of what this lifestyle is like. During all this time I've lived without rent, I have saved a lot of money, and that is a big factor. There's a big reason for this decision, and that is something I will talk about later in this episode. But something I haven't necessarily saved a lot of is time. Turns out that living this way, there are a lot of little tasks that need attending to constantly. Most notably this morning, it took me 20 minutes to make coffee because I got distracted by the amount of condensation in the front end that I needed to dry out. It was also slightly icy. So I have the heater cranking to help dry everything out. I wiped it all down. It just takes time. It just takes a lot of time. Every day there's all these little tasks. And you would think living in a small space, it would be easier to keep it clean. That is not true. That is absolutely not true, at least not for me. It doesn't take long to clean it up again, but every single day it's an absolute disaster. And every single day, at least once a day, sometimes twice, sometimes thrice, I have to clean the van, put things away. It just takes a handful of things out of their place, and all of a sudden it feels like a mess. So I like to spend as much time as possible away from town and out in the woods, and that means that any day I'm not near an outhouse, I'm digging a hole. And after 3,000 days of very often digging holes, you get a very keen eye for choosing where to dig so you can do it very quickly, very efficiently. Just a couple around, pop out the plug, fill it, put the plug back in. Frank's not much of a morning dog, so while he sleeps in, I've come down to choose us a spot to spend the day and night. So I'm gonna set up camp now, go back, have a nice meal, and then come down with him and everything else we need. I think Frank is really gonna like the spot I've chosen for us. But I'm very hungry now, and it is way too warm down here today to be wearing pants and a hoodie. We are packed up and on our way to the beach. I had some delicious pan bread and loaded everything into the backpack to have a glorious day, including tons of water for both of us. So it is pretty heavy, and my photography gear, which just doesn't get used enough. Here in British Columbia, rent is a huge expense, and I estimate that during the time I've lived this way, I've not spent about $100,000 in rent, which is a lot of my time I didn't spend working to make that money, and instead have enjoyed being outside and doing things like this. Which brings me to one of the lessons I always share about van life, and that is it's not about the van at all. The van is pretty irrelevant in the big picture of things. It's what you're able to do with all the spare time you have because you've lowered your cost of living, which is why when there's really nice weather and I'm parked like half a click from the beach, I'm gonna camp on the beach instead of stay in my van. When I rescued Frank, we were still living in an apartment paying rent. Yeah, oh, that sucked. But I promised him that I would never work a job that involved leaving him at home. And living this way has made that a lot easier because I don't have to make as much money. I can be more picky and choosy with the types of jobs. And a lot of the jobs that I like to do that are also outside and allow dogs are jobs that are easier to do when you're nomadic. That's been a huge benefit to me and to him of living this way, is that we get to spend all of our time together. My diet has definitely changed living this way. For starters, I've never had a refrigerator. So over time, I just became a plant eater. But it also varies a lot depending on weather and what I'm doing. This is something I would normally eat in the van if the weather was really bad and I didn't want to cook outside. But because it wasn't very far to walk, I carried the like heavier, quick ingredients. Normally camping, I would have dried food, and in the van, I eat all types of one-pot dishes. I would say overall, I eat way tastier food now than I ever did living in an apartment, because I've just had to learn how to make do with what's available or what needs to be eaten that day. And so that's challenged me as a cook. Good morning. I was just about to start a morning fire on the beach because I was lucky enough to come across that really dry cedar. Super good for getting a fire started. But then the wind picked up, like a lot. So I came back to this little shelter in the trees to make coffee. But the wind is going to be really good for drying out the tent because there was tons of condensation last night. It just completely soaked the tent this morning. So I've been thinking a lot lately about what type of things I really appreciate about this lifestyle and what would be hardest for me to give up. And for me, a big thing is the soundscapes. I don't think I could ever go back to an urban area full time. Just a couple days really starts to wear on me. I really enjoy the amount of times I get to park my van somewhere where I hear a nice natural soundscape, like the creek or the ocean, or coming down and sleeping in the tent and listening to the waves or the birds or just the wind in the trees, or quite often the absolute stillness. I've found that the natural soundscapes have been really soothing and just lowered my overall stress levels. Yeah, I think having all the natural sounds makes it a lot easier for me to think and to listen to myself clearly and to be able to get in touch with my own intuition. And I like hearing the rain. I like the sound of the rain on my van. It's quite loud, but I always know when it's raining. Whereas in a house, sometimes you go outside and you're like, oh, it's raining. Like, it's this complete surprise because you're just so sheltered from the elements. So I like being able to hear everything that's going on around me, but I also like that to just be natural sounds. So that's a huge win for me living this way. Well, it's been swell, but I think it's time for second coffee and some more pan bread. buddy? Do you want a treat? I got some pepperonis for you. There you go. Thank you for going camping with me. You want another pepperonis? I appreciate your company. So it is a few days later and I am clean, but my van is quite the mess because I'm parked for a few days working on things, developing some new skills, and that is something that has been a really big part of not paying rent for me, is having time to learn new things. There's something I like to think of which I call the time skills feedback loop, and that is that the more free time you have, the more of that time you can put into developing skills to allow you to do things for yourself so that you don't have to pay someone else to do it, which lowers your cost of living, giving you more free time to develop more skills to continue to lower your cost of living. And that is a big part of how I've been able to live on such a low budget all of these years and to be able to do so many enjoyable things, is that I do live a simple life. I minimize my driving and I spend a lot of time gathering skills, which brings me to today's sponsor, Skillshare. As somebody who's new to being a digital nomad, I was really stoked when Skillshare reached out to sponsor with me because I had used their platform before, and it's something that I knew I would find huge value in growing this career as a YouTuber. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes available on a wide range of topics, which is perfect for those who love learning, want to explore their creativity, and develop new skills. One of the classes I've enjoyed recently is Find Your Style by Andy Pizza. It's 5 exercises to help unlock your creative identity, which I found really fun and has helped me feel at home when creating. One of my favorite things about Skillshare is that it is ad-free, which allows me to stay in the zone when I'm working. So less distractions. Learning means I have more time to put the skills into use or to spend with my Frankie. If you're interested in trying Skillshare, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description below or code TIDELINE to Alpine will get their first month free when joining. A huge thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I really enjoy their classes. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed coming along and maybe learned something from it. I've really enjoyed living this way, but just a reminder that it's not just van life that allows you to live rent-free or reduce your cost of living. There's tons of unique ways to go about it, from sailboats, tiny homes, work to live on farms, that type of stuff. There's tons of options, tons of creativity that can be used to find a way to live a more fulfilling life. So yes. Please give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't already. I really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye. One of the ways I've funded my nomadic rent-free lifestyle is working on farms. So if that's something that interests you, check out this video right here. Or if you're just looking for something more casual to watch, maybe check out this video where I just spent some time by a nice lake.